What's going on, wrestling fans? Jeff Upson. I'm alongside Eric Knopsnyder. And Eric, it's been a minute. It's been actually longer than a minute. It's been a really long time since we've been on the air. And if you notice, I'm in a new location. You are still in your hole of a basement. I'm just in a different hole of a basement. It's good to talk to you. It's good to see you, Eric.
Yeah, it's been so long. I can't even remember the last time we did a show. Just unfortunately, we got different schedules going right now. It's kind of hard to work things out with your schedule and my schedule and able to get together. But thankfully, we got True Power coming up here, and that kind of forced us to say, hey, we got to get together at some point and talk about this awesome card that we have coming up.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's just I've had a lot going on these last couple months. I've moved to a new location. I'm no longer a resident of Allegheny County. I'm now a resident of Westmoreland County, so an undisclosed location, Eric. And
You're getting
you
closer to me, though.
I am getting closer to you. That is true. I am inching
Yeah,
closer to you. I think that's I think that's kind of planned too, because I think we need to be closer to each other, closer to
I
Penn
like it.
State too, a little bit.
I don't know if I like that, but
I'm closer to Mark Billett. That's all that matters. I'm closer to Mark Billett. We're a week away, and for True Power. So if everyone remembers last year with COVID, we weren't able to host the Surge. This year, we wanted to do True Power again. Last year, we had a lot of interest, a lot of success in True Power. We had a senior level match. We had a couple girls matches. This year, we decided, hey, you know what? We're going to have an exclusive girls card because we're very much behind the sanctioned PA movement. We're very much in support of girls wrestling growing in Pennsylvania. So we were like, hey, I saw kind of what Tony Hager was doing at IA Wrestle at Night of Conflict. He has a girls card on Friday and a boys card on Saturday. So we're like, hey, let's see what we can do. And for the first year, I'm pretty impressed with the turnout of girls that we got to be on our girl power card. And then of course our boys card is going to follow that up on Saturday. So this all goes down Saturday, October 2nd. That's this Saturday in Tyrone. Girls will start at 4 p.m. and then the boys card will start at 6 p.m. So just kind of constant throughout the day. We're going to see a ton of really good wrestling. We're returning to the Tyrone Armory, so you'll be able to see the no smoking sign that everyone's a fan of at the Tyrone Armory. I love that place, Eric. I'm really glad we were there, and I can't wait to host True Power again there.
yeah, it was such a cool facility. Really enjoyed having it there, and look forward to getting there and getting even more matches there this year. As you said, with the girls card, with the boys card, should be an awesome night of action there. And like you said, True Power was kind of born out of necessity last year because we couldn't do the Surge just with everything going on. But now this year we're doubling up. We've got True Power, and then we're going to go into the Surge in November. So a lot of action coming your way from PA Power Wrestling, and should be some great stuff before we even get into the actual season.
And you can't see because I'm wearing a hat, but I'm getting a lot of gray hair, Eric. My hair's graying out because of all
Welcome to
these.
the club.
I'm still trying to figure out this whole fatherhood thing. That's still a mystery to me. And of course, having two events, pretty large scale events, a month apart is a little stressful. And last year for True Power, we had kids begging to be on the card for a variety of reasons. One, COVID, no one was wrestling, but two, it was just everyone wanted to show what they, number one, because they didn't know if they were going to have a season or not, because that was still in the time when we're like, is the PIW going to have a season or are they not? This year, it was a little bit harder because we have football going on. We have wrestlers that are in other events. We have Journeyman going on. We have Super 32 going on. Waterway duels, all these big time events that are happening that, and here's the other thing that I ran into this year was college visits. So the number one reason why we weren't able to get some of the guys and girls that I wanted on the card were because of college visits. If you remember last year at this time, the NCAA was in a dead period. Now that's lifted and colleges are scrambling to get kids on campus. Think about all the football games that kids are going to right now and visiting. So official visits have just been ramping up. And, that's been one of the reasons why it's been hard to nail down a card. But man, I'm still really impressed with the card that we have coming at you for Saturday. Eric, I know you were kind of on the back end of things with us planning, but it's a lot different 2020 versus 2021.
Yeah, you've done all the work. I'll give you all the credit. You're the one doing all the legwork for this, calling the kids, emailing, Instagram, and doing whatever to get in touch with these different wrestlers and saying, "Hey, what are you weighing? Can we get this?" I mean, people don't realize the amount of work that it takes to get a preseason one, especially put together. It's one thing, if we could do it in season when we know where everybody is weight wise and all that. But when you're looking at guys that we haven't seen and girls maybe compete in a while, it's kind of tough to judge and say, okay, what are you weighing? What can you make for this? What are you willing to wrestle? And then trying to find that good matchup that, okay, we know these two would be really good, but there may be 6 pounds difference. Can we figure out a weight where they can meet in the middle? It's a lot of stuff. And as you said, whenever you've got all the other preseason events that are going on and the college visits and kids playing other sports, there's just so much going on right now that we didn't have last year because of COVID, which is good. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're glad that they're getting to play soccer and football and go on campus visits and do all this stuff. It just makes it a little bit more difficult whenever we're trying to put together the best matchups possible to take all these variables into account and get everybody that we can onto the card and with the best matchup possible.
Yeah, and not to mention just health too. Kids trying to stay healthy. Injuries, all those different things that happen along the way. It can be a little bit difficult, right? Eric, we don't have much time. If we're going to stick to our power hour timeline of an hour, we don't have much time to waste. So I want to get up and start talking about the card. Again, I mentioned the girl power version of the True Power event is going to be first. That's at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Of course, all of this is going to be live on Rockfin exclusively. You can subscribe to our channel. It's $9.99 a month. You can cancel anytime after that, or you can subscribe and save a couple bucks for a year subscription. That's $99. So be sure to check that out on Saturday.
Well, and just a quick reminder too, that's not just PA Power Wrestling that you're getting for that $9.99. You're getting access to all the Rockfin content. So much wrestling stuff on there. If you're a wrestling fan, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, the amount of stuff that you're getting for $10 a month.
I mean, yeah, looking at it now compared to now versus a year ago, the amount of content on there is insane. The National College Duels are going to be on there. Obviously Mat Scouts, but now Intermat's on there. Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. There's a whole gamut of just really good channels out there in addition to us. So, yeah, you're right. Not only do you get that PA Power access, you get all the access to the other channels. So, drum roll, please, Eric. Let's check with the girls card here. So we've got 9 exclusive girl power matches going on at True Power. So last year was a big year for us. Last year we had Lily Scherer versus Montana DeLauder, Andy Subishin versus Ava Bayless. Those two returned to the card, but this time they're not wrestling each other. Nationally ranked wrestlers on this card. I think of the 9 matches, I think there's only like a handful that are not nationally ranked right now. So this card is just, again, I'm very happy with the way it turned out because you look at the amount of Fargo All-Americans on this card. You look at the amount of state medalists, state champions on this card. It's really impressive. Nationally ranked wrestlers we have on here. We have number 1, Grace Stem from Baltimore area, who we had talked about exclusively this summer because she made a world team. She's currently ranked number 1 in the nation. She did take a loss yesterday to Charlotte Guilfoyle. So, obviously Grace is a girl who's looking for, a little bit of payback here, but it's a really good card. Eric, when you first saw this, what jumped off the page at you? Because I know you're probably going to say Ava Bayless, Andy Subishin, because we had them on last year.
Yeah, those are obviously 2 of the really big names and 2 that we're really familiar with because of that. For me personally, I like the Jordan Faust patron plumber matchup that we have because those are two girls that I've heard a lot about, being, not too far from me, 45 minutes from me, something like that. So those are two girls that I haven't really gotten to see too much. But Jordan Faust, I know, has been the talk of our area for a while, even wrestling last year against the boys and winning the Mountain Conference, which is a really difficult conference to win. And so for her to win it there, I mean, this is a girl that I've heard about for a lot of years, and this will be my first chance to really get to see her in action. I saw her working out with Mason Gibson over the summer, at Bishop McCourt doing there was a clinic going on there, and they were rolling around. But this will be the first time that I actually get to see her in competition.
Yeah, and you had mentioned Mason Gibson. He kind of suggested this match a little bit for us with Plummer and Faust, and a Bedford County matchup here between two girls that are looking to cement their name here in girls wrestling, because you look at Plummer, she won a state title, right? She won a state title last year, and Faust is just a girl who I think a lot of people are going to know her name in the next
Oh yeah.
in the next couple of years, right? And Montana DeLauder was one of those trailblazers, if you will, and I think Faust is going to be, she's going to be really one name to keep a lookout for. So I like that, the Bedford County matchup here. There's some other really good matches on here. Andy Submission and Jayla Pletz. That is one of the top matches that I think. And Andy Submission, as we know, she was a state champion 2 years ago. She lost in the state championship last year to another girl who's on this card, who we're going to get to in a second here. But Jayla Pletz, she comes in ranked number 24 in the nation currently. She's a two-time state champion at Fargo this year in the 16 and under. No longer cadet, 16 and under. She was 7th. She won a state title this year in the 16 and under division. She's really done it all. She's out of Governor Mifflin. But Andy Submission is a girl who we know very well from being on the card last year. We've seen her compete against boys and beat boys, lots of boys. Mm-hmm. I kind of thought that Andy was going to be the first girl to potentially make it to the state tournament. She's been just really wrestling well as of late. But this is a tall task for her, I think. She doesn't have Ava Bayless this year, but she's still going to have her hands full with Pletz. I think these two are going to have a good match.
Yeah, and as you said, both ranked nationally. That should be a great match there. Interesting to see how that goes. And as you said, Andy's been there before with us, so it'll be great to see her back on the card. And I know she enjoyed it last year. It'll be fun to have her a part of it again.
You look at 106 pounds and Anna Malovich from Butler. She comes in ranked at number 14th in the country currently. I was really not surprised. I was impressed with her this year at Fargo. She took 5th in the 16 and under division. She's done well throughout the youth and junior high ranks, but she really turned it on at Fargo. And being from out this way, I hear a lot about her from the Butler, North Allegheny area, that whole group of wrestlers, and I've heard a lot about her. She's going to have a tough matchup with a girl from the northwestern part of the state, from Northwestern High School, and that's Sierra Chizia from Northwestern. She's one that I Mark Steen from Bad Karma talked about her a lot, and I think she's one that again, like Jordan Faust that we talked about, she's only a 9th grader, and I think she's going to have a good career ahead of her. She was a state champion in the youth division, but she's really looking to make a name for herself here at True Power.
Well, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it, to go out here and, get this statewide views. People are going to be watching, not just across the state, but as we said, with Rockfin, with having the ability, for anybody who signs up for any of the Rockfin content to watch us across the U.S. and across the world. So, this is really a big stage for her to step out there and kind of show what she can do.
So we talked about Andy Submission, and we had a hard time figuring out the name last year, right? When we did this,
we've got it down now.
We got it down now. I mean, Andy's my girl. I got it down. However, let's go up a weight to 115. Who's Ava Bayless wrestling, Eric?
I tell you what, I was looking at these, and is it me or the girl's name's really tough on here? Like, they're making it tough on us, Jeff. We got Lexia Schechterly, and I
Schechterly.
apologize if that's not right, but that I'm doing my best with it. I
You're,
mean,
you're,
as
you're
a Knopsnyder who got my name butchered a lot, I feel your pain, and I apologize for anybody's name who I screw up on here.
well,
But
well,
it looks like Schechterly.
she's number 17 in the nation, and she's one of the top wrestlers in the state currently right now. She was eighth at Fargo this year in the 16 and under division. She's from Lake Lehman, and I've heard a lot about her coming up through the youth and junior high and high school ranks. And I think she's the girl who beat Andy Subishin in the state finals and the My House girls state championship. And
Okay.
obviously, if Andy Subishin's getting beat, this is somebody who we're gonna try to
Yeah,
get on this card, right?
no doubt.
They've wrestled a lot back and forth, so I think she was of the opinion like, hey, I want to wrestle somebody different. Like, hey, Ava Bayless is available. How about you wrestle Ava Bayless? Ava, of course, from Reynolds at Wyman St. Mary. She's number 4 in the nation currently, which is huge, right? She's one of the highest ranked wrestlers on the card. And Eric, you remember out in Fargo when she was a Fargo runner-up in the cadet division, finishing second. She was 5th
Hmm.
this last year in the junior division. She's been a state champion, a My House Girls State Championship. She's one of the top girls in the state. She's a senior. I think probably one of the better matches on the card here is absolutely Ava Bayless versus Lexia Schechterly.
Yeah, this is definitely, probably the one that I'm looking forward to seeing the most. As you said, this is somebody that, with a win over Subisha, we know how good she is, but to, get to see her in action and also take on Ava Bayless, that'll be a lot of fun to check that one out.
If you go up to 125, Jolie Scott from Wyman St. Mary, she's from the northwestern part of the state, versus Marissa Rumsey from Williamsport. Rumsey's, I got to see a lot of her when Mitch Rupert was still. It's hard to believe Mitch Rupert's not going to be writing this year, but
Yeah.
he talked a lot about her from the Williamsport area. She was a Fargo All-American this year. She finished 8th in Fargo in the 16 and under division. She was a state runner-up at the My House Girls State Championship. She's placed 4th in the state. She won a pair of youth state titles, and I remember that a couple years back because that was when it was up in your way, up in Johnstown. But she won 2 youth titles. So, I mean, I'm surprised that she's not ranked in the nation considering she did place in Fargo. Jolie
Yeah.
Scott, on the other hand, I think she's one that is again looking to kind of break out here. She was a junior high state champion, a youth state champion, so she's not new to wrestling, and she's not new to winning.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jeff. It's spelled Joel. Is it not? Is it Jolie or is it Joel?
Did I say Joe? I think it's Jolie.
It looks like it's spelled Joel on the doc that you have
Maybe
here.
I'm wrong. I'm awful at pronouncing names, Eric. Why would you
I
ask
know
me
you
for
are.
clarification?
That's why I'm asking you just to
Awful.
check because and again we apologize if we are not getting any names right. It takes time and unfortunately where we are with girls wrestling is we don't get to see it enough that these are the household names that they should be at this point. With the boys we see a lot more of them and we kind of get accustomed to them and you still butcher them, but I can at least set you on the right path on a lot of them. But with the girls, unfortunately, we don't see them. I don't see them at least enough to know all these yet. So, girls, we're working to try to get there with you, and make sure that by the time you get to this point, you should be household names, and we're trying to help you make that happen.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's girls or boys. I screw it up. You could tell me a name 100 times, I'm still gonna screw it up. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, and you mentioned before that you're looking at these names for 5 years before they really burst onto the varsity scene, and so you've kind of already got that pronunciation in your head, right or wrong, and you're sticking with it for the next 5 years. And by the time they get to college, maybe I've broken you of those habits, but it takes a while.
You're not wrong in that sense for sure. I'm definitely saying it in my head and probably wrong. Haley Jaffe from Kennett. She is probably one of the best wrestlers on the card, no doubt about it. She's a state champion. She was 3rd in Fargo this past year. She's won U.S. Nationals. I believe she's on the Pan Am team for the U.S. And like I said, she was third at Fargo this year, state champion, number 4 in the nation currently right now. She's going to have a tough match with Savannah Witt. So Savannah Witt's somebody who, again, I've got to hear a lot about from out in District 11, Palisades, and she placed 5th this year in Fargo in the 16 and under division. She won freestyle states. She was a junior high state runner-up. She's number 6th in the nation currently. So this is number 4 versus number 6th in the nation, Eric. A top 10 matchup in the nation between two of the top girls in Pennsylvania on True Power. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm excited about this card.
Yeah, top 6 matchup. I mean, 4 versus 6. That's awesome. You can't ask for much more than that. Anytime you can have those kind of the national rankings and have that kind of matchup on our card is really exciting.
So we talked about the All Bedford matchup, and we mentioned Grace Stem from Bald Eagle area. She'll be wrestling against Avery Ryle from Wyoming Seminary. So Grace is a world team member, right? She's number 1 in the nation. She was 1st in the state last year, 2nd the year prior, and 3rd the year before that. She's one of the top girls in the nation for a reason. Avery, though, on the other hand, people may be, I don't know if they're counting her out, but they shouldn't, because she's number 15 in the nation. And she did place 7th in Fargo. She was only 5th in the state in the girls' state championship. So, but being at Wyoming Seminary, I think she's improved greatly since being there. Obviously, how can you not get better being in that room with all those high-level girls and obviously a coach like Aaron Tomei? It's just a good atmosphere to be in. But Avery placed 7th in Fargo, 5th in the state. She's number 15 in the nation. And I mentioned Grace Stem's coming off a loss. She lost this past weekend to Charlotte Guilfoyle, also of SEM, Central Dolphin wrestler. Shout out Charlotte. Maybe you're smelling something in the water here. You're saying, hey, I can take her out. But I like this matchup as well.
Well, and you bring up a good point here, just to go on a little sidebar for a second. But what we're seeing out of Wyoming Seminary and having that dedicated girls program is what we're really working for in Pennsylvania, to get those dedicated girls programs so that they can all have rooms. I mean, maybe not quite the Wyoming Seminary's ability level when those all those national names in there, but if you just have a girls specific team and you're wrestling freestyle all the time and you're wrestling other girls, I mean, that's going to raise every boat. That's the rising tide raises every boat type of philosophy, that's going to bring everybody up. And when we get to that point, and as we're seeing more and more teams added, and just this past week, obviously on a national level, Iowa announcing their women's wrestling program. I mean, all that stuff is going to raise the level of women's and girls wrestling in Pennsylvania and across the nation. So it's great whenever we can see that kind of commitment.
I mean, I love seeing that Iowa started a women's wrestling in Division I, and I saw Spencer Lee tweeted out, "Iowa is wrestling," and I'm like, Pennsylvania's wrestling.
Just stealing our tagline.
You know that?
Come on.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to let him know that, Spencer. You're still from Pennsylvania.
You can't be poaching that from Pennsylvania and taking it to Iowa.
He can't, but I'll let him know. I'll send him a text and let him know that's
all right.
No bueno. He's Spencer Lee. He can do whatever he wants. You talked about just the amount of talent and getting to know these girls. This is really what I'm excited about. Last year, obviously getting to know the wrestlers that were on the card. This year, having a full exclusive card of girl wrestling is just, this is going to put them in a spotlight, and it's never been done before in Pennsylvania. That this is a one of its kind, first of its kind type of opportunity. And I know at the national tournament and the NCAA tournament when it was in Pittsburgh, Wyoming Seminary wrestled a almost all-star dual meet against some of the top girls from the United States. But this is unique because it's all Pennsylvania wrestlers, right? So very much looking forward to that. 150 pounds, Lena Rumpler from North Allegheny, she won a state title this year in the 16 and under division. Dan Heckert, who I'm very close with, has talked a lot about her and how much she's improved just for being a newer wrestler. She's new to the sport. So I think this is a nice range of diversity when you look at the spectrum of, girls like Ava Bayless, who wrestling's in her blood, right? The Bayless name is synonymous with wrestling, right? But then you have a girl like Lena, who's new to the sport, right? And we're giving them all of the opportunities for this. She's gonna be wrestling Paige Yatilsia from Parkland. Eric, I don't know if you have a better pronunciation of that, but
I'm gonna go Yatsila.
Yatsila. That's probably better. That sounds better. It rolls off the tongue better. Paige she's, of course, Parkland is one of these are two teams here. Now check this out. North Allegheny and Parkland are two teams that have sanctioned or have a girls wrestling team. They're one of the 16 schools in Pennsylvania with a girls program. So that's pretty cool that we see two schools with each a wrestling program going head to head here at True Power. So that's kind of cool. And of course, Brooke Zumas, who is at Parkland and the head coach there, has done a really phenomenal job. Paige was fifth in the state this past year at the My House Girls State Championship, and she was fifth at the 16 and under state championship. So again, giving all the girls an opportunity, regardless of experience level, Eric.
No, and that's great because, like you said, I mean, frankly, where we are as a state, even and Ava Bayless and Andy Subishin, those girls have been doing it for a long time, but it still isn't ingrained enough the way boys wrestling is here that you don't have girls necessarily that have been doing it their whole lives. They can still pick it up fairly late and still be successful at it. So it's awesome in that regard to be able to see somebody who doesn't have that ton of experience go out there and compete with somebody who has been doing it for a little while.
Last but not least, and this is another one that has national rankings all over it. This is Abby Miles from Laurel versus your favorite, Eric, say it, Caitlin
Pegorella.
Pegorella, that's right. I thought I had that pronunciation down pretty well. But Caitlin comes in at number 22 in the nation. Now, she was a state champion in 2019. She was second last year. Abby Miles was third last year. They did not wrestle in the state championship. They both they didn't wrestle each other there, but they finished second and third respectively at their weight class. Now, Abby was sixth at Fargo this year in the 16 and under division, so that really turned a lot of heads. She comes in ranked number 16 in the nation. So number 16, Abby Miles versus number 22, Caitlin Pagariela from where? Where is she from, Eric?
Greater Nanticoke.
So not only is the last name,
you can't pronounce the last name or the school.
No, I'm saying it can be. It's not like Greater Johnstown. I've heard people say Nanticoke before or Nana. I've heard people butcher that name before. Trust me, I've butchered it. Absolutely, I have. I mean, there's a lot of schools out there that have some weird names or weird syllables to them.
Greencastle Antrim.
Yeah, there it is. That's a good one. You're right.
That one the folks didn't get to hear that one because that was back when we would record it and you could edit out the mistakes. But Jeff must have said Greencastle Antrim wrong about 6 times in a row.
I was thinking of what did I say? Atrium. Atrium. My mind was somewhere else, Eric. Okay. This girl's card is pretty loaded. I'm really excited about this one. But we got to move on to the boys because we're already at the 30-minute mark and we've only gotten through the girls. So let's move on to the boys card, Eric. Again, the girls card is going to start at 4:00 on Rockfin from the Tyrone Armory. Let's move it up to the boys division and see what we got here. So a lot of matches here. We got a lot of matches, and
is it 17? Is that what I counted?
17? Yeah, I think it's 17 total. I don't know. I just have names.
Jam packed. You are getting a lot for your $9.99.
Yeah, you can't really beat that. And you look at the talent level here. And again,
we got a world champ.
Yeah, I mean you got world champ, you got world team members, you've got state champions, you got national prep champions, you've got,
Yeah, it's loaded.
Yeah, it's a loaded. Could it be a little bit more loaded? Sure, absolutely, it could. But man, it's gonna be a fun card. That's for sure. And the one thing I like about this is the diversity of where these kids are from. I didn't realize this until really this past week when I started crunching numbers. I was shocked at how many District 4 wrestlers are in the event. I don't know. People just assume like, oh, you guys love the WPIAL.
It's going to be 7-11. Yeah.
Or District 11 because 11's always one of the top districts, if not the top district. And I'm from District 3. You're from the Johnstown area, but there's a ton of District 4 wrestlers on here, and for good reason. They're really strong right now. But Malvern Prep kind of takes the cake with the amount of wrestlers they had on this card. Nathan Lauder there's nobody who promotes the wrestlers more than Nathan Lauder. My gosh, he's one of the best there is, and I don't think he gets quite enough credit on the national level. For the amount of talent that comes out of Malvern Prep. Speaking of Malvern Prep, our first match at 120 or 106 pounds features Shane McFillin of Becca versus Anthony Mutarelli from Malvern Prep. Now, these two are kind of very similar in their trajectory, right? Mutarelli has won 3 youth Pennsylvania state championships. So 3 times he's won a state championship. McFillin, on the other hand, has been awfully close. He's finished 3rd 3 times and 5th once. Now, these both are freshmen coming into this year. Shane McFillin won a 16 and under state championship. These are 2 guys that I think are going to have a lot of success this year in their respective divisions, Eric.
Well, and I know you love seeing these young guys kind of get a chance to get out there and show what they've got and give people maybe their first chance to get a look at these guys. Guys that have had success at that youth level that we really want to see how they're going to do as they kind of grow into these new roles and step onto the bigger stages.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the amount of freshmen that are on here. There's a good bit considering how many quality guys we have in the state of Pennsylvania. There's a lot of freshmen on this card, a lot of younger guys on this card, and I think for good reason. They're very tough. So McFillin Mutarelli, I think is going to be one of the better matchups of the card, but probably the one that is the most sneaky good. And that is because not only he's a world champion, but we just saw what Bo Bassett did at Flo's Who's Number One. However, Brent Hare is no easy out here, man. Brent Hare is a guy. Look at the amount of state championships we have between these two. There is a total of 10 state championships between these two. Brent Hare is a 4-time state champion. Bo Bassett, a 6-time state champion. This one, I think, has fireworks written all over it, Eric.
Well, and this will be interesting because I think this is probably the highest, at least that I've seen, that Bo's going to wrestle. If this is 112, because he was down, it was at 106 for Flo, and I know he was cutting a little bit to get there. But 112 will be a little bit more of a step up in weight for him. I know he's definitely kind of grown up a little bit, even since we saw him making the world team. But yeah, this should be a great test for him and Brant Hare to see how he fares up in weight a little bit there.
Yeah, and I think, you look at Bo and what he's been able to do. I think, he wants to wrestle the best guys, and I think you look at Brent Hare.
He wants to wrestle everywhere.
Well, right. That's the thing. I mean, Bo's just the kind of guy that just wants to. I mean, he wants to compete, and he wants to compete at a high level. And I think I know he was willing to wrestle up to have this match. So Brant is a guy who, I think they have a lot of mutual respect for each other, and I think. Bo knows that Brant's not gonna, you may be a world champion, but Brant's not gonna come in and just roll over for him. Kind of like Nathan Desmond did last year at True Power. He came out swinging against Bo Bassett. Brant's a guy who's just been on the scene forever. He was 3rd in the junior high state championship this last year. Like I said, a 4-time state champion. He's finished 3rd before. He's finished 5th. The guy's just been – he wrestles hard, and he wrestles a lot. So this is going to be one that, obviously people coming in are going to say, oh, it's Bo Bassett, world champion. Don't sleep on Brant Hare. That's for sure. If you go up to 117, Kale Nasdio versus Sam Herring. Now, Bo Bassett is an eighth grader this year. Sam Herring is an eighth grader this year. So we have two eighth graders on the card in addition to all the freshmen. I kind of lump them in with the freshman class, but we have a lot of wrestlers that are in the eighth and ninth grade this year. But Sam Herring is one of the top on this card, and we saw him advance to the Fargo finals this past summer. He was second in the 16 and under division. Was Sam Herring. And Eric, he's like a six-time Tennessee youth state champion, something like that?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's something like that. And he hasn't gotten to wrestle the past 2 years in a state tournament because of COVID in 2020, and then he was banged up this past year and didn't get a chance to wrestle in the postseason. So yeah, he's got quite a collection of state titles that might have another one or two added to it, if not for some difficult circumstances over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty incredible to see what he's been able to do throughout his time here in Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, this last summer he was a double All-American in Fargo. He was second in freestyle and eighth in Greco-Roman. So Sam is somebody who's gonna compete. He's gonna compete hard. Those guys at the compound in Bishop McCourt, they wrestle hard. And if it's anything like what we saw Bo at Who's Number One, it's going to be a fun match because he's going to have a state runner-up, Kale Nasdia from Williamsport. Now, Kale is a guy who last year he really came on to his own. He was a regional fourth place finisher in 2020. Last year, he had a phenomenal postseason, finishing second in the state in a really loaded bracket. Of course, you had Tyler Chappell, Caden Williams. But Kale is certainly the older one here, right? Being a 11th grader, he's got a lot more experience in those types of matches. So, but again, you look at Sam Herring, it doesn't get much bigger than the Fargo finals either.
No, absolutely. This isn't going to be anything that, I mean, as much as we like to promote this as a big stage, and it is, I mean, when you've been on that literal stage in Fargo with all eyes on you, you're not going to be too intimidated by anything else that you're going to face, even if it is somebody as accomplished as Kale Nasdio.
So I mentioned the Caden Williams, state champion for Manheim Township, and Caden and Camden were going to be on the card, and they just recently had to back out for some injury from health reasons. But we were able to fill in a really, really tough wrestler from Faith Christian Academy, Gage Botero, who finished as an All-American in Fargo this past summer versus Jack Consiglio from Malvern Prep. Now, Jack we talked about him last year, I think, 4 or 5 times on the podcast. And we actually had him on the show after he won a national prep championship. He was amazing at Powerade. He just really turns our heads at Powerade because he just kept on winning and winning and winning. And he just, we're like, who is this kid? I mean, I knew him from being a medalist in junior high and youth, but he was never a state champion in the youth ranks. I think maybe the highest he was like third, maybe. I think it was third in junior high, fifth in youth. But man, he's really jumped levels. And this is what I was talking about with Nathan Lauder and Malvern Prep. I think they, once they get into that room, Spencer Barnhart, perfect example, just getting better and better. Jack is a guy who won a national prep title last year, Powerade champion. He was 6th in Fargo this past summer in freestyle. He won a state championship in the 16 and under division. He was beating Vinny Kilkeary at the time and then got pinned by him. And I know he wanted that match back here. And we wanted Vinny. We couldn't get Vinny. And then we had Caden. Caden had to pull out. So guess what? Last minute, let's go with another talented freshman, Gage Botero from Faith Christian, who they're building a powerhouse there. And we can talk about them at a later time, Faith Christian Academy. But Gage Botero is a guy who I know a lot of people are excited about from out that way in District 1. As I mentioned, he was third in the youth state tournament, and this year in Fargo, he was an All-American, finishing 8th. So maybe not the guy Jack wanted, but still a very good matchup here.
Well, and it's always fun to see that young guy get a chance to take on somebody as accomplished as Jack. So that should be a fun matchup there. I mean, I think Jack is the favorite there, of course, but still an intriguing matchup to see where Gage Batero is at this point.
Yeah, and actually, Gage was competing at the Journeyman today. I haven't been able to check out to see many of the results at Journeyman because I've just been kind of busy with this card. But be curious to see where he ends up and how he finishes. Some other guys that were at the Journeyman today were Tyler Chappell and Brandon Wenzel. So state champion Brandon Wenzel, he won a state title in 2020 from Montoursville. That's when Montoursville had just a phenomenal run. They had a couple state champions, couple state runner-ups. They had a lot of they had a great tournament in Hershey. Brandon was third in the state last year, wasn't able to repeat, but he's a guy who just kind of under the radar a little bit. I think I don't think he gets as much press statewide as maybe he should. And he's going to take on Tyler Chappell. Both these guys have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think both these guys wanted very badly to win a state title last year. I think both these guys were in the mix for a state title. Obviously, Tyler Chappell beat Caden Williams in super regionals before losing to him at the state. I'll call it the state tournament, but the medal round. Both these guys, I think, really were poised to finish high. They both finished third in the state last year. So I think this is a good kind of rematch, reset, if you will, for these two.
Yeah, and like you said, I think unfortunately Montoursville kind of gets overlooked a lot, even though they did have that incredible run 2 years ago that you were talking about. And they're always really good, but it's just a team that, again, too often the focus is on District 7, District 11, and District 3. We kind of lose sight of Montoursville and what they're doing up there. So Brandon Wenzel, like you said, if you can be a state champ and a state third and be overlooked, that may be the case with him.
Yeah, I mean, we remember when he won a state title, being Callum Bowman from Chestnut Ridge, and that was a pretty wide open bracket, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these two are going to have a good match in the second 120 match. We're going to have two matches at 120, but then we have another one at 122. And this is a guy who returns to the card, and that's Dalton Perry from Central Mountain. Last year, he had one of the best matches of True Power, losing to Kilcarry, and then comes back to pin him in a headlock. And I was very impressed with him. And he was an 8th grader last year. This year, he's in 9th grade. He's going to be wrestling a guy, though, who has a lot of experience and, not saying he's overlooked, but he's a guy who doesn't get talked about a whole lot, even though he's a 3-time state medalist, and that's Gavin Bradley from Athens area. Now, he was 2nd in the state last year, 7th in the state the year before, and 6th in the state as a freshman. A 3-time state medalist going against a guy like Dalton Perry, who just, obviously has a ton of accolades already. He was 7th in Fargo this past season, finishing 7th in the under 16 division. He's won numerous state titles in both junior high and youth. So big time matchup here between the young and the old guard, if you will.
Yeah. Did Gavin Bradley, did he get a COVID year like in college? Is he back for like a 6th year? Because I swear he's been around forever.
He has been,
like,
man.
It just
he
seems
has
like
been around.
Gavin Bradley has been on the scene forever. But yeah, as you said, really interesting here because he's got so much experience. And Dalton Perry, even though he's only a freshman, he's got plenty of experience himself. As you said, pinning Kilcarry last year. So we know all about Dalton Perry and what he can do.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Willie Saylor had Dalton Perry as his like top freshman, or maybe top 3. He was high up there. So I mean, Dalton Perry's got a lot of hype around him. He's very excited about this match. With a guy, who has a lot of experience, a guy who's been there, done that. Been in the state finals. But the young buck, man, he's coming out swinging literally. So watch the headlock. I think everyone knows that after seeing that last year. Another fill-in late was Mason Ziegler from Quakertown at 126. So Carl Schindeldecker from Chambersburg was set to wrestle Camden Williams, Manheim Township. Mason Ziegler was able to step in and fill that role there. He's only a sophomore. And again, last year, District 1, they weren't able to wrestle a ton of matches. but he finished 7th in the state last year. He came into the medal round with only a one loss, I think. He's just been great, and kind of not saying he went untested prior to that, but I think it was a wake up call when he got to the PIAA, to the Giant Center, right? He finished 7th in a very deep weight class, and I think this matchup for him, Carl Schindeldecker. Let's not forget, Carl Schindeldecker was 3rd like 3 years ago. Okay, he's been around for a long time. You talk about Gavin Bradley. Carl Schindeldecker was 3rd as a freshman, doesn't make it to the state tournament as a sophomore. As a junior, he's in the state finals against Mac Church. Do you remember that match? He was an ultimate tiebreaker win away from winning a state title and beating Mac Church.
Yeah.
Again, low key, Carl Schindeldecker is very good. Him finishing 3rd as a freshman, like, just blew my mind. Like, he came in with like a 20-13 record. Maybe it was even less than that. I don't know. And just went on a tear in the back end on the wrestlebacks, and came back to take 3rd in the state. Disappointing follow-up in the sophomore year, but then, of course, comes back to make it to the state finals. Carl Schindeldecker, not only do I love the last name, but I love the way he wrestles, and he's down to wrestle anybody. I know he's disappointed that he doesn't have a chance at Camden for a District 3 matchup there, but Mason Ziegler is a guy who I think is going to be one of the top guys. He finished, I think, 3rd at the freshman National High School Coaches Association Freshman Nationals. I believe that was the case, but he was definitely a medalist there. So I'm excited about this match, and I'm happy that Mason was able to take it.
Yeah, that one is a nice one, like you said, for a last minute change. That's still a pretty solid matchup, and I'm really excited about 132, where we've got Colin Rath from Bethlehem Catholic, who's a guy that seems like I've been hearing about for years, and we're finally getting to see him step in as a 9th grader.
Well, it's funny because Colin is coming in. He was at True Power last year, but he wasn't wrestling. He was a camera guy. He was one of our camera operators at True Power last year. His dad's like, hey, anything to get him in the door and anything for him to do. I was like, yeah, he can run a camera. He was great too. But what happened is he went on to the Super 32 like a few weeks later in the high school division and placed in the high school division of the Super 32 as an 8th grader. So obviously I was like punching myself. I'm like, why didn't I have him on the card? Like, he's pretty good.
Wasting talent as a camera operator.
Wasting away just playing with the camera. But
you're going to ask him to shoot some matches before his match this time? Like, hey, Colin, could you jump in and
might have to
do a little film work?
So him and Spencer have gone. They actually wrestled 2 weeks ago, I think it was, with Spencer winning that match. Yeah, Spencer won that matchup at the Waterway Duels. They are in the same bracket at Journeyman today. I have not had a chance to look at the Journeyman brackets today, but there's a good chance they could have wrestled already. But so this could be the rubber match if they did in fact wrestle today. Spencer, that's your boy, right? That's Nick that's mini Nick Feldman, or should we say, Nick Feldman is just a bigger Spencer Barnhart. Spencer Barnhart,
supersized Spencer Barnhart,
right? Supersized Spencer Barnhart. He won a national prep championship last year. Came onto the scene strong. He was 3rd in the state in junior high, but Spencer Barnhart's a guy who just continues to get better and better and better. Colin, on the other hand, looking to make a name for himself. If you look at Colin's resume, and you said you feel like he's been around for a while and you've heard his name for a while. Let's look at his resume. State champion in the junior high last year in 2021. Youth state championship. He was 1st, 2nd, 2nd, 2nd. So 4 times he was 2nd. He's been in the finals 6 times of a PJW or Keystone State Championship finals. 6 times he's came away with a state title 2 times. The kid can wrestle, right? He won a state title this year at the PA USAW 16 and under division freestyle. These are 2 very highly accomplished wrestlers, even though they're younger. And this like I said, this could be the rubber match if they wrestled today.
Yeah. So definitely we'll be familiar with one another by the time they get there if they did face off today. but still an exciting one for me to see with that, the experience and Barnhart, and even though he is experienced, still a young guy in Wrath.
Yeah, I mean, again, Wrath really turned heads last year when he placed in the Super 32 high school division. That's not something many wrestlers can do, and he was able to do that. So that turned a lot of heads there. 138, Dom Findora from Downingtown West versus Scott Johnson from Muncie. Scott Johnson's a guy I'm very high on. Last year, state finalist, lost to Joey Fisher in the state finals. Dom Findora is another one who I feel like he's been around forever. He's like a Gavin Bradley type. Man, I feel like he's just been around for a long time. He's recently committed to Drexel, and he's been to the state tournament every year. And last year he came away with a 4th place finish, and he wrestled well for his 3rd time at the state tournament, finally getting a medal. He came away with a 4th place finish. Scott Johnson, on the other hand, as I mentioned, a state runner-up to Joey Fisher, who's now at Clarion. Scott Johnson was a qualifier the year prior to that, so he'll be a junior this year. So junior versus a senior. And Scott Johnson and Muncie, really impressed with what they're doing. And his brother, Austin Johnson, is going to be really tough. He's a lot bigger, but he's going to be a lot tough, really tough when he gets on the scene here. But yeah, 138. Looking forward to Dom Findora versus Scott Johnson.
Yeah, and quick sidebar here. I was at a cookout last night and was talking to a guy that I'd never met before, and I asked him where he's from. He's like, "Oh, you probably never heard of it. It's called Muncie." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know Muncie. They got a good wrestling program going there." And so he was just thrilled that I'd heard of Muncie and knew where it was. So guys like Scott Johnson putting Muncie on the map.
Well, so it's funny because in my line of work, Muncie refers to the women's state prison, right? So
Oh, okay.
people know Muncie
A little different there.
for wrestling and the prison, right? So yeah, there's Muncie's known, right? 142 pounds. Briar Priest, man, just keeps on getting bigger. He won a state title at 132, beating Dylan Chappell in the state finals in dramatic fashion. He was 106 the year prior to that. He's wrestling 142, and he's wrestling against Luke Simcox of Central Mountain. Now, Luke Simcox is a guy who last year, if you remember, he beat Ethan Bergnick of Hempfield area, who's a returning state champion at the Super Regional. Now, Ethan was able to get revenge on him in the state tournament, but Luke Simcox is, I mean, I'm a very big fan of Luke. He was 5th last year in the state. He's finished 3rd in junior high. He won a junior state title this year in freestyle. Briar Priest is going to Pitt, and again, a guy who went from a regional qualifier to a state champion. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. It especially doesn't happen when you go from 106 to 132. But he got it done, and I think this one's going to be a great match. These two have known each other for a long time. A little history between Central Mountain and Hempfield area. But yeah, this one's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and as you said, these are two guys that, Briar Priest really took that big jump going from a regional qualifier to a state champ. And Simcox was a guy that I was high on all last year, from the time he first stepped onto the mat as a freshman. And, through the state tournament, impressed there, as you said, knocking off Bergen, and just a quality freshman season out of him. So it'll be interesting to see how these two match up here at 142.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the matchup here, and Priest doesn't do a ton of like national stuff or freestyle. Luke Simcox, he was on Team Pennsylvania at Wranglemania this year, a team that we took up to New York, and he was late to on the card. Jackson Arrington got hurt, so he was able to jump in because Dalton Perry and Landon Bandy were already going, and he's like, yeah, I'll wrestle there, and he wrestled up. And I was very impressed with how he did there in freestyle. So, a guy just likes to scrap. He likes to wrestle. There's no doubt about it. Another group of guys that love to wrestle is Connor Hare from Montgomery and Connor Pierce from Harbor Creek. The battle of the Connors, the ERs versus the ORs. And if I spelled their names, I mean, I hope I got them right, because I've spelled their names like opposite so many times before that it's like I just can't just be like Connor with like just CONN or something like. This one's a good one here. Connor Hare is a guy I'm very much a fan of, and you know, he was on our card at the redemption duel, and you know, he's a guy who was fifth in the state last year. I know he probably wanted to be a little bit higher, and if you remember that match he had with Ian Oswalt from Burrell, he nearly knocked him off there. And you know, Connor's a guy who just continues to get bigger and better. State champion in junior high. He, you know, he's been there, done that, right? Connor Pierce, on the other hand, kind of like a Gavin Bradley. Connor Pierce is a journeyman. He's been around for a long time out of Harbor Creek, and you know, Mark Steen of Bad Karma, he's high on him, talks about him a lot. Connor Pierce is a guy who you look at what he was able to do in high school thus far. Fourth last year, seventh year prior, seventh as a freshman. So a three-time state medalist. And I gotta throw this picture up here that we have of the graphic here, because it's pretty good. You know, he's got all his medals on. The Battle of the Connors, Connor Hare and Connor Pierce, both flexing in their photos. I love it. And Connor Pierce, if you remember, he won a freestyle state championship this year in freestyle in the junior division, and he finished ahead of some very good opponents. Brandon Bauer being one of them, Brandon Kletos another one. So he had a really good tournament, and you know, I think he's not saying he's overlooked, but he doesn't get talked about quite enough, in my opinion. And I think this is a really good matchup between the Connors.
Yeah, when you're looking at a three-time state place winner already coming back for his senior season, he's obviously got the accolades there. And again, you know, it's one of those things where Harbor Creek isn't a school that's going to get talked about like they would if he were on a Waynesburg or somewhere like that, you know, that's constantly in the spotlight. But no, good matchup there. And then we got another one, an interesting one here at 160 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, again, one of a guy who I'm a huge fan of, and that's Tyler Lillard from Aurora, Ohio. So people are gonna say, well, why do you have a kid from Ohio in here? Well, listen, when he was asked to be on the card like months and months ago, he was still in Pennsylvania. He's got Pennsylvania in his heart, man. You know, he's a great kid. I love Tyler. And if you haven't had a chance to read the article on him on Intermat, there was a really good article on him about being blind in one eye, you know, suffering from seizures and kind of the things. He hasn't had an easy path in life, and the nicest kid in the world, the most respectful kid, you know, I've been around in a long time. He's just a great kid. He was able to wrestle for Team Pennsylvania on the Wranglemania roster. I got to know him and his mother very well up in New York, and it was a no-brainer to have Tyler on the card. Now, Tyler's going to Indiana. He's currently in Ohio, so he's bounced around. He's been in Georgia. He's been in Ohio. He's been in Pennsylvania. You know, kind of like Sam Herring. What school is he going to in
Ohio? Do you know?
What's that?
What school is he going to in Ohio? Do you know?
Aurora.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're a pretty solid team from Ohio. They have several guys ranked nationally currently. So Tyler's going to be in just, you know, he's going to be just fine out there. But he's going to Indiana. He's committed to Indiana. Of course, Angel Escobedo, a guy who we're also big fans of. Tyler is going to be wrestling Levi Haynes, world team member, state champion, Penn State commit, battle of the Big Ten right here. It doesn't get any better than this. You know, both these guys are nationally ranked. Levi Haynes, number one in the nation after winning at Who's Number One. Do not sleep on Tyler Lillard. I will say that because, and Levi knows that. Levi's got a lot of respect for Tyler. This one's going to be a good one. This may end up being the showcase match when we do the match order, because this one's going to bring a lot of fireworks.
That's what I was going to ask you. If this is your favorite matchup on here, I mean, this has got to be near the top.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite. And I don't say that lightly, because I have a lot of favorites on this card. I have a lot of I like all these wrestlers on the card, and I like a lot of the matchups for different reasons, but this one just has a lot of pop to it. You know, the way Tyler Lillard wrestles, he's never out of a match. He does things a little bit unorthodox. He is never out of a match. He can go forever. Like he wrestled at Ringomania. We lost Trey Kibe at 170, like the day of. So we had an opening. So Tyler wrestled both 160 and 170 against nationally ranked guys all throughout the day. Like he's the only wrestler of all three teams between Minnesota, New York, and Pennsylvania to wrestle twice in every dual meet. I'm pretty sure he probably could have wrestled 3 times. So, you look at
maybe we can get him to do some camera operating whenever Colin Rath isn't doing
it. Yeah, right. Hey, Tyler, can you work this camera before you wrestle, Levi? I know you got a long drive here, but hey, can you work the camera? And Levi, Levi's done it all. He's a state champion. He's a world team member. He's one of the top guys in the nation. He's number 1 in the nation. He's going to Penn State. David Taylor, Levi Haynes. I mean, I think you can put this on a billboard and there's a lot of backstory here too. Like each of these guys have just good stories. They're both good kids. They're both good students. They're just, I look at it when I look at all the factors. Yeah, this may be one of my favorites, if not the favorite.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's 160. Another 160 matchup, and this is because Eric Gibson can't stop eating. Eric Gibson's returning to the card. Oh, and by the way, Levi Haynes is a returner to True Power. So there's several guys here that are on the card last year. Bo Bassett was on the card last year. You look at Dalton Perry, obviously he was on the card last year. Colin Rath was a camera guy, but he was there. You look at Levi Haynes, he was on it last year, beating Nathan Lucier. Eric Gibson returns. He beat state champion AJ Corrado last year at True Power. This year, he's taking on Michael Dugan from Boiling Springs. I really like this matchup for a lot of different reasons. I think Eric Gibson has a chip on his shoulder from last year not being able to compete, having beaten Grant McKay and AJ Corrado last year, 2 guys that ended up winning state championships. Let's not forget, Eric was 3rd in the state as a freshman, and he was in the mix for a state title as a freshman. What's happened to Eric Gibson since then? He got injured in the state semifinals, defaulted out to 6th. They, obviously, everything that's going on between Forest Hills and McCourt. Now he's at McCourt, ruled ineligible. It's like, I don't know. And we've known Eric for a long time, and I really, really like Eric, both as a wrestler and as a person. So I just feel like he hasn't had that chance yet. I just feel like he's still got a lot to prove. And Michael Dugan, I think, is the same way. Michael Dugan, you're the younger brother of Patrick and Francis Dugan, right? I mean, again, a name that is very synonymous with wrestling. And Michael, he's had to scrape and claw to get to where he's at. And, he wants to have those big matches. He wants those opportunities to wrestle in big time matches. So it was a perfect fit for him here against Eric Gibson.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, as you said, with Dugan. He's got that name recognition, the 3rd place last year, ready to kind of take that step up. And the same thing with Eric Gibson, as you mentioned, he's been in the mix. We thought for state titles the first 2 years, and then last year beats a couple state champs, but doesn't get the chance to compete in the postseason. So this is really 2 guys that should be really hungry heading into the season in terms of wanting to make that next step and jump up to a state championship level.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that Michael Dugan is a guy who's going to have a good year this year, right? I think he's definitely going to have a good year. We saw that last year, going from a state qualifier to a state 3rd and being in the mix there. These 2 are both in the same bracket at freestyle states. Eric Gibson ended up winning a freestyle state championship, and Michael Dugan was 4th. He wrestled all the way back. I think he won like 4 or 5 in the consolation round to get to the 3rd and 4th place match. So 2 guys that are, again, they're close. They've been in same brackets, and I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. If you move up to 175, we're getting a little bit of the big boys here. Dominic D'Agostino from Interboro, another District 1 wrestler here, versus Jake Jones from Saucon Valley. Again, a matchup between guys that we don't typically, at least from being in the western middle part of the state, maybe not see or hear of a lot of. And D'Agostino, I think, is one of those guys. District 1 folks know him, And I think a lot of guys were not surprised to see him make the podium this year, but he had a good tournament. He had a really good tournament, finishing sixth in the state. It was his second time at the state championship. He was a regional qualifier as a freshman, qualifier as a sophomore, and then sixth in the state last year. I think he turned a lot of heads there. And I think for good reason. He's on the True Power card here against a guy like Jake Jones, who coming up through the youth ranks was, one of the top guys. He was a junior high state champion, fourth in the state last year, was a qualifier as a freshman, has done a lot of freestyle and Greco in his time here. But he's gotten bigger, and this is going to be fun to see these two up in some weight here. But two young guys, two guys with a lot of experience, different paths in their careers, but two guys that I think are going to bring it.
Yeah, this should be a fun one. Jake Jones, as you said, a guy that we knew a good bit about growing up, and then the fourth place finish last year kind of solidified his place as he moves up now to that 175 class as a junior. And then, as you said, DiAgostino also placing last year. He was a qualifier before, so some good experience there, and it should be a pretty interesting matchup between these two.
Yeah, I'm excited to have some District 1 guys on this card. Last year we had Nathan Lucier, we had Kyle Hauserman. District 1 this year we got Dom Fendora coming, obviously Gage Bottero from Faith Christian, and having a guy like Dom, coming onto the card is just, I think it's good. It's good to see that. If you move up to 185. Two young guys, Jagger Gray from Trinity versus Tucker Hogan from Daniel Boone. Now, Tucker Hogan, if you remember back when we had the surge in 2019, Tucker Hogan was an 8th grader or a 7th grader. Maybe he was a 7th grader. I'm not good at math. He beat state medalist from Easton in the first round, and we're like, what is he doing? You're not supposed to do that. He's one of the top youth wrestlers coming up through. And last year, I think, I'm not saying he was disappointed, but I think he probably could have been on the medal stand last year had things been a little bit different. Now, he rebounded because he finished as a Fargo All-American this past year. So I know he was really excited about getting on the podium in Fargo, becoming an All-American, and bringing home a stop sign. He was a super regional qualifier last year, lost to Brian Finnerty. He's been there, done that. Like I said, he's got a lot of experience. Jagger Gray, on the other hand, he's a guy who's his path has been a little bit different. He was a regional qualifier. He's probably the guy on the card with the least amount of quote credentials, if you will. He was 5th in the district last year, was in a very deep weight class, but I know people are very high on him. He finished 3rd in the state in freestyle in the junior division. And that's kind of what turned me onto him and kind of seeing what he was capable of wrestling. So obviously you finished 3rd in the state in freestyle. You're going to get some notices. But this is an interesting matchup just because of the difference in, this isn't Tyler Lillard and Levi Haynes. But I think each one of these guys have a lot to prove here at True Power.
Yeah, and this is, again, we like giving those guys a chance sometimes to show, hey, I've made that jump. I was a district 5th last year, but showing that I can take 3rd in the state in juniors freestyle is pretty impressive. So giving him that opportunity to step up and to face a guy like Tucker Hogan, who is pretty solid in his own right, it's a great opportunity for both of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, and Tucker, like I said, he has a lot of experience winning big time matches. I mean, obviously you don't place in Fargo and not have a lot of good success. So yeah, I know he's excited to be on the card and have a chance to wrestle a guy like Jagger Gray. At 205, an interesting one here with Caden Rogers of Malvern Prep. Caden, national prep champion last year. This past summer in Fargo, Caden came away as a double All-American, finishing 5th in freestyle and 3rd in Greco-Roman. He's done a lot of things in his career, but I think probably beating Max Stout really turned a lot of people onto him. He's going to Lehigh, and beating Max Stout. Then Max Stout gets injured, and then Caden goes on to wrestle his teammate Jack Waymeyer in the finals. Interesting how that's kind of panned out for him. But on the opposite side of him will be Hayden Linkeroff from Corey, who last year was 7th in the state. Big time, wrestler coming up through the youth ranks. He was 5th in the region for 2 years as a freshman and a sophomore before making it onto the podium as a junior, finishing in 7th place. So I'm excited to see what Hayden's able to do with Caden, because Caden he's one of the top wrestlers in the nation. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, Hayden Linkerhoff is really moved up, as you said, and placed last year. But Caden Rogers is a pretty big step up. That's a pretty big challenge. But hey, this is an opportunity. That's how he has to look at it and go in there and see what he can do against one of those guys who, as you said, is one of the best in the nation.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there with opportunities, right? It's just it's a good time to get some good quality matches under your belt, and this is that time for Hayden to come out and prove, hey, see how you can hang with a guy who's ranked in the nation. At 285 pounds, this is the big boys wrapping it up here. This is Matt Cruz of Easton versus DJ Moring from Wyoming Seminary. Now, Nick Feldman of Malvern Prep was going to be on the card. Injury has kept him out here. But unfortunately, he was not. He was going to return on the card. He was on the card last year, which, funnily enough, the guy he wrestled last year on True Power was Nathan Taylor, who went on to win a state title at heavyweight. He was a late fill-in for Nate Schoen from Selinsgrove, who got injured coming into that. DJ Moring from Wyoming Seminary, he was, coming up through the youth ranks. He was a PJW state champion. He was at McKeesport. He came to the Surge, and if you remember, he wrestled Jalen Stevens in the final. That was a really close match between those two. And Matt Cruz is a guy who's a 220-pounder, really, coming up to a 285 position. He was right there with Sean Kinney from Nazareth, was 5th in the state last year, state qualifier before that, and 6th in the district prior as a freshman. So DJ Moring, also a senior last year at the National Prep Tournament, he finished 6th, as I mentioned, junior high state champion. So very much a contrast in, styles and body types, that's for sure. DJ Moring's been a heavyweight since he's been 12. Matt Cruz has been kind of in that middleweight position. Now he's solidified himself as a heavyweight. So obviously we wanted to have Nick Feldman in the card, but, DJ Moring stepped up and he's going to be bringing it.
Yeah, and this is I got to give props to you, Jeff. I mean, it's really hard to get heavyweight matchups this time of year because most of your heavyweights are playing football. So this is a really good matchup, especially whenever you had someone that you lost, the caliber of a Nick Feldman, you lose him late. So to have this kind of matchup is awesome. It's a really good heavyweight matchup at a difficult time of the year for it.
Yeah, I mean, heavyweights are hard to come by these days. I mean, you look at journeyman, there's not many wrestlers that are wrestling heavyweight. And DJ Moring, for the record, is playing football. They're off next week. They don't have a game next week. Wyoming Seminary doesn't, so that's why he's wrestling. Because it just so happened they had an off week, and he was able to compete in it. So shout out to him for taking the match and coming on to this event. So it's going to be a lot of fun, Eric. We are now 16 minutes over our hour. You got to get up at like 3 a.m. because you've got to get up for work. So I'm going to cut this short. True Power, Saturday, October 2nd, live on Rockfin. The girls will start at 4 p.m. The boys will start at 6 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun. This week is True Power Week. We're going to have a lot of content coming out in the next couple of days leading up to True Power, just kind of hyping up the event and talking about some of the storylines coming in. And it's going to be a lot of fun, Eric. Don't work too hard in Louisville. Make sure you save yourself for Tyrone on Saturday.
I will be gearing up for True Power as I'm in Louisville. Doing the trade show thing and trying to keep one eye on what's going on with the wrestling and getting ready for for this awesome event that we're going to have in Tyrone. Looking forward to it, and can't wait to get back Matt side.
And I can't wait for you to get your microphone back that you sent to Louisville already too. So that way,
well, hey, the headphones are working for one show.
Yeah, there are. They're a nice.
The mic is packed up and in a truck in Louisville right now. So.
It's all right. It's all right, Eric. We forgive you. It's been a long time. We're rusty. We're very rusty. I feel rusty. So I'm sure this. Yes. I feel like I'm on the mat for the first time in like 6 months. So not a good thing.
I was winded after 30 seconds. So
yeah, right. Exactly. Not like Tyler Lillard. I can't go a whole long. All right, Saturday at 4:00. Make sure you tune in to PA Power Wrestling on Rockfin to catch True Power, the 2021 All-Star card that's going to be featuring a ton of talent, girl power and true power coming at you. Until next time, Eric, keep it classy, wrestling fans.